So on opposed wrong number class certifications, we are 5-0. So we have actually not lost one yet. I know that's the biggest jinx, so that means that one is coming, of course. But no, I think to be fair, we are obviously selective and strategic with which cases we're teeing up for opposed class cert motions, which ones we're seeing all the way through. So it's not as if we're picking from our worst that we're taking to the mat. But no, so far, knock on wood, we have had a great success record with them. And then in the settlement context, I couldn't tell you the exact number, but probably close to 20 wrong number TCPA class settlements at this point.
Yeah, I mean that is a fantastic number, and the most remarkable thing about that 5-0 figure, people listening to this might think 5-0, like who cares, right? Man, you get 5 straight certifications on a single theory. That means that lawyers, very good lawyers at big firms who've had a chance to see this argument, right? It's just like when you're preparing for, when you talk about football and they're watching them on tape and they know what they're going to do, right? These defense lawyers know what's coming and they still can't stop them over and over and over again. I mean, that really says something about the level of skill that Mr. Greenwald is bringing here. And beyond that, I mean, the plaintiff's bar outside of Mike Greenwald is like 0-5, right? So if Mike's bringing the case, they're 5-0. If somebody else is bringing the case, it's not going as well. If you can share, are you guys only bringing these wrong number class actions in the TCPA space, or are you doing other kinds of TCPA cases as well?
Yeah, so Aaron Radbill and I primarily do TCPA, and then drill down to that. I would say, I don't know, 85% of our TCPA cases are wrong number cases. And also, even on a finer point than that, they're pre-recorded voice cases, as opposed to, ATDS cases. And we can talk about why. But two of my other partners, Jamie Davidson and Jesse Johnson, they do some TCPA, but they're also doing other consumer protection and privacy cases. So we're in a few data breach cases. We have some products cases. We still do some Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and other sort of the alphabet soup of consumer protection. So as a firm generally, we're doing more than TCPA, but me and Aaron in particular are not exclusively, but pretty close to doing only TCPA.
So, Mike, on the TCPA, I mean, from the plaintiff's bar's perspective, I mean, is the TCPA, I always call it like the big golden goose, right? The big gold mine. Is that your view on it too, or are these other kinds of claims, are they equally as valuable? What do you think?
I mean, I wouldn't use that language. That sounds a little more pejorative than I would use on the plaintiff side. But listen, I mean, the TCPA is sort of is a unique statute. It's uncapped, obviously, on damages. Whereas if you look at many of the other consumer protection statutes, they're capped, whether it's the FCRA or the FDCPA, capping something to 1% of a defendant's net worth turns those really into lodestar cases, which for people who don't practice is cases based on your hourly rate and the hours you have in a case. Whereas a TCPA case, you're looking at a common fund normally, and then fees determined as a percentage of the common fund. So certainly, I mean, whether it's the most lucrative statute, I think is probably open for debate, but at my firm, it is certainly the most lucrative statute. And also, I mean, if you look at the number of robocalls out there and you're dealing with $500 per violation, the numbers can be staggering. Just with the rates of robocalls, the number of companies doing them, still making them without consent, still delivering pre-recorded messages. So it's not just the statute, of course, it's also the conduct of callers that's driving these cases too.
So Mike, bearing in mind that you're a guy, we talked about your roots, staying at La Quinta's, man. You're not staying at La Quinta's anymore. I mean, I think it's fair to say you've made millions and millions, frankly, of dollars pursuing these wrong number cases. I mean, do you ever get the sense that these are largely cases that just come, from mistakes that businesses are making? Do you ever think, maybe there shouldn't be such high penalties for people that are accidentally essentially calling wrong numbers and getting caught? I mean, what's your view on that philosophically?
No, I don't agree. I mean, when you say not intentional, I mean, if your point is, are the big banks and finance companies purposefully trying to call the wrong person? No, they're not. But if you look at what I would call the reckless indifference by which they're doing it, I've never had a case against any of the bigger institutions where the number of phone numbers we learn in discovery that they're calling at wrong numbers aren't in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And so I think really what's happening here is it's easier, it's cheaper, it's more economical to call a number repeatedly, often with a pre-recorded message, and then ask the questions later. And so I don't view it as, oh, these are just, a handful of accidents. These are hundreds of thousands of people who are getting called at the wrong number, who don't want these calls. And like I said, our focus is on cases with pre-recorded voice messages. The simplest way to avoid TCPA liability for defendants, and I, hate saying it out loud, is don't use a pre-recorded voice. And, that will get rid of a lot of these cases. And also the harassment that people feel. I have one now that I'm working on against a big financial institution that I won't name, where person got a new cell phone number and got 150